If Donald Trump wins the 2024 United States presidential elections against Kamala Harris, a single plan could reshape the entire U.S. government and shift the balance of power toward the Trump presidency. That multi-part plan is called Project 2025, led by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, and with the help of more than 100 other conservative groups. Project 2025 is raising big questions about the future of democracy and civil liberties in the U.S. So will this plan secure America's future or lead it down a dangerous path? Let's debate it as we analyze what it actually tackles, because in this video, we dive into everything you need to know about Project 2025. This is not an ordinary policy blueprint. It's an ambitious plan that aims to reshape how the U.S. government operates from top to bottom. The people behind this project, mainly conservative think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, are preparing for the next potential conservative administration, namely a Trump presidency, by creating a detailed strategy. Their goal? To put the reins of the government back into the hands of a president with far-reaching control. And this isn't just about making policy changes here and there. It's about changing the very structure of federal power. They literally have a solid vision. It includes removing some federal agencies. It also includes filling key government jobs with politically aligned appointees. This initiative aims to centralize power in the executive branch. It wants to ensure that if Donald Trump takes office in January 2025, he can pursue a conservative agenda without resistance from existing bureaucracies. But with every shift in power comes uncertainty. So, will these changes create a stronger, more efficient government? Or are they a step toward something controversial? Be the judge. In the following, we have summarized the document that provides the policy agenda for Project 2025, a book that is over 900 pages in length, structured into 30 chapters. Its title? Mandate for Leadership 2025, The Conservative Promise, edited by Paul Dans and Stephen Groves. Before we jump right into it, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more animated book summaries. Now, the story begins with the 4 pillars of Project 2025. These pillars are the plan's backbone. They lay the groundwork for everything from economic reform to national security and social policies. This is where the foundation for sweeping change is set, and we're about to see just how deep these plans go. Don't forget that each pillar has a purpose. They work together to create a powerful, streamlined conservative government. Let's tackle the first one, policy development. This is where the blueprint begins. It will reshape everything. It will change the economy, healthcare, national security, and social policies. The goal? To ensure that the next conservative administration is ready with solutions to the most pressing issues. These policies reflect core conservative values. They aim to sweep changes from day one. It's a guide to governing federal agencies. It gives clear steps to roll back regulations, cut taxes, and shrink the government. Next, we have personnel recruitment, a critical component. You see, the people behind Project 2025 aren't just focused on policy. They want to fill every key federal government position with people who fully share this vision. But it doesn't stop at recruitment. The third pillar is all about training. Project 2025 includes a Presidential Administration Academy. It will train appointees for their new roles. The Academy runs workshops, seminars, and mentorships by former officials. This ensures that these individuals are not just politically aligned, but also ready for their roles. Finally, there's the strategic planning. This is a strategic guide that lays out what the new administration should do in its first 6 months. It's all about hitting the ground running. Quickly undo past policies, then implement conservative priorities without delay. It offers specific actions for every department, ensuring that the administration doesn't waste time or lose momentum. These 4 pillars are the backbone of Project 2025, and the plan for how they will execute their plan is insane. One of their boldest moves is restructuring the federal government. And this isn't just a tweak to how things operate, it's an overhaul. The people behind Project 2025 want to cut what they see as pointless bureaucracy. They aim to create a government that aligns with conservative principles. One of the most significant changes is the idea of filling key federal positions with politically aligned appointees. Project 2025 aims to replace career civil servants. They are people who have worked their way up in government agencies. The goal is to replace them with individuals loyal to the new administration's agenda. Many believe that career bureaucrats block progress. They slow new policy efforts. By making these positions political appointees, the government becomes a tool for quickly enacting change rather than a system that resists it. But this restructuring goes even deeper. Project 2025 proposes abolishing certain federal agencies altogether. Some see the Department of Education and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as harmful to conservative goals. They see them as unnecessary. So the plan is to either eliminate them or merge their work into other departments. They should align better with a smaller, more focused federal government. This isn't just about reducing the size of government, rather shifting control. Project 2025 aims to speed up government by concentrating power in fewer agencies. It wants a president to have more direct control over federal departments. There are even calls to privatize the Transportation Security Administration. It aims to cut federal oversight and shift duties to the private sector where possible. These changes aim to make the government more efficient and ideologically consistent, but they also raise serious concerns. Critics argue that replacing career civil servants with political appointees could lead to a loss of nonpartisan expertise in federal agencies. Meanwhile, cutting key departments, like the Department of Homeland Security, has sparked debate. The question is, can the government still meet the public's needs? On the other hand, Project 2025 doesn't shy away from diving into some of the most debated social and cultural issues in America today. The plan's core goal is to redefine social policies. It wants to do this based on conservative values. That is, having a focus on transgender rights, LGBTQ+ issues, and reproductive health. One of the major shifts proposed by Project 2025 is the pushback on transgender rights. The plan calls for reinstating the ban on transgender individuals serving in the military. It goes further. It insists that public schools must use only students' birth names and pronouns unless parents allow otherwise. This aligns with a broader conservative effort to limit gender identity policies. Many in this camp see them as inconsistent with biological sex. Then we have the LGBTQ+ rights. While Project 2025 does not propose reversing same-sex marriage, it advocates for reinforcing the traditional nuclear family structure. The goal is to support a family model. It centers on a married man and woman raising children. The plan also aims to cut diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in federal institutions. It frames them as divisive and out of touch with conservative principles. Another focal point of Project 2025's cultural agenda is reproductive health. While it doesn't outright call for a nationwide ban on abortion, it pushes for significant restrictions. It suggests using the Comstock Act to block mailing abortion-related items. This move is seen as a way to drastically limit access to abortions nationwide. It also calls for revoking the FDA's approval of abortion drugs. This would make it harder for people seeking reproductive health care. These proposed policies raise questions about the balance between individual rights and traditional values. Supporters say these measures are vital to preserve American culture and morals, but critics claim they could roll back decades of progress in civil liberties and equality, and they don't stop there. Project 2025 takes a bold stance on climate policy. It rejects mainstream environmental protections. Instead, it aims to boost traditional energy industries like oil and gas. The plan aims to boost the economy and energy independence. It would roll back old climate rules and cut renewable energy investments. A key proposal is for the U.S. to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement that includes commitments from 195 countries to reduce their emissions and work together to adapt to the impacts of climate change. But Project 2025 reflects a belief that international pacts burden American industries. The goal is to give oil and gas companies more freedom. To do this, they want to reduce government oversight. This will remove strict environmental rules that hold them back. Also, the project seeks to limit the Department of Energy. It should promote traditional energy, not green energy. It also plans to reduce the Department of Agriculture's focus on sustainability. Some see it as limiting to agriculture and economic growth. The impact of these rollbacks is already stirring controversy. Supporters of Project 2025 say the changes will boost the economy, especially in fossil fuels. They will also cut environmental compliance costs. However, critics are concerned about the potential long-term effects of climate change, as these policies could significantly hinder efforts to transition toward a more sustainable and environmentally responsible future. And what about the economic and healthcare sector? Well, the project has some sweeping changes in mind. The plan advocates for a significant overhaul of the tax system, aiming to simplify it with just two brackets, 15% and 30%. Low and middle income earners would see one tax rate. Higher earners would fall into the 30% bracket. The goal is to simplify the current system. However, critics warn this may raise taxes on low-income families and cut them for the wealthy. Corporate taxes also get a cut in Project 2025's vision, dropping from the current rate to 18%. The idea here is to promote business growth and competitiveness, allowing corporations to reinvest more of their earnings into expanding operations. However, it raises the question of whether these tax cuts will really translate into benefits for everyday Americans or just boost profits for large corporations. On healthcare, Project 2025 doesn't seek to repeal the Affordable Care Act, but it does propose some drastic reforms. 1. Medicaid would have work requirements. People would need to prove employment or job seeking to stay covered. It aims to reduce reliance on government aid, but it could risk vulnerable groups if they can't meet its requirements. There's also a push to restructure Medicare, leaning more toward making Medicare Advantage the default option. This is the private sector version of Medicare. It allows for more flexibility but often has higher out-of-pocket costs. Supporters see it as a way to add choices. Critics worry it could hurt coverage for seniors who rely on traditional Medicare. Many are asking, will these changes help more Americans or leave some behind? If Donald Trump gets re-elected, only time will tell, as they are also planning on reshaping how the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation operate. You see, the vision for these agencies isn't just about tweaks. It's about changing their role in the federal government to align with conservative ideals. The plan suggests that these institutions need to shift their focus away from what it sees as politically motivated actions toward prioritizing the fight against violent crime. The project's architects propose a top-to-bottom overhaul of the Department of Justice, with the goal of reducing what they describe as a bloated and unaccountable bureaucracy. They argue that the DOJ is too influenced by a managerial class. It doesn't reflect the values of the current administration. Project 2025 aims to fill key positions with political appointees loyal to the president's agenda. It wants the Department of Justice and the FBI to focus on the executive branch's priorities. Now, a controversial part of the plan is its suggestion to limit the FBI. It should not investigate misinformation and other political sensitive areas. Instead, the FBI should return to its original mission. It should tackle violent crime and terrorism, avoiding political issues. It's a vision that sparks fierce debate. It concerns the balance between executive power and agency independence. However, the interesting concern many have is whether Project 2025 is tied to Donald Trump. Well, the Republican candidate for the 2024 presidential elections, Donald Trump, has been mentioned often in talks about Project 2025. But he has publicly distanced himself from the plan. He's gone on record saying he has nothing to do with the project and even called some of its ideas ridiculous. On the surface, this sounds like a complete rejection. However, when you dig deeper, you'll see that many of the people who helped shape Project 2025 have direct ties to Trump's former administration. We mean key figures like cabinet members, advisors, and Trump allies. They played critical roles during his presidency. So, while Trump may publicly distance himself from the plan, his administration's fingerprints are all over it. And let's not forget the project is a continuation of his first-term policy goals. This time, it's more refined, with a clear plan to push through conservative reforms. Trump may not have officially endorsed it, but many see it as a blueprint for what a second Trump term could look like. In short, Trump's involvement may not be as direct as some expect, but it's clear that Project 2025 reflects the agenda and vision that shaped his presidency. Without a doubt, Project 2025 could ripple through society. It could affect the government and citizens' daily lives. For sure, its impact will likely be felt all over the world. The question now is, if Trump were to take office again, how much of this plan would he actually follow? What's your opinion? Would Project 2025 create a more efficient and responsive government? Or does it pose a real threat to democracy and civil liberties in the United States? Share your thoughts in the comment section below and be sure to subscribe.